Welcome to the Private Lender Podcast with your hosts from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey everyone, Chris and Jason here. Thanks for checking out the Private Lenders Podcast, sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com, our community of private and hard money lenders. Go check it out anytime, create a free account, and join the conversation with us and everyone else. Today, we are talking about taxes as we start tax season 2023. Obviously, the tax year being 2022. And what does that look like for a hard money company with a $50 million portfolio? 46, 48, 50 million, right around there.
Yeah. It looks, listen, if you do one loan or you do 1,000 loans, you still have obviously required docs to be sending out to your capital investors and to your borrowers. So we typically have four forms that we're sending out along with uploading to the IRS at the end of every year, right? We have our 1098s. So our 1098s go to our borrowers to show all the interest that they paid us, right? That's typically the majority of the forms that we have. So I don't know, we had about close to 400 of those because keep in mind some overlap from previous years and things like that. We had 1099 INTs. So those goes out to our capital investors that they're getting 1099 INTs. We got 1099 NECs, which is non-employment compensation, which is a new form that came out, I think, 2 years ago. And those go to some of our specific vendors, referral partners, things like that. And then we also have 1099 miscellaneous, which typically goes to law firms or professional service companies. So that's typically the four that go out. Lots of different solutions in order to do so. But, by January 31st, I think is the deadline to notify everybody of them. We used to do paper copy stuff, and we found softwares that just do email stuff, and we prefer that. It's kind of a little bit easier. We have a paper copy of one if we need to send it out to somebody at a later date, because this is the funny thing of these things. You're sending them out on January 31st, and no one's in tax prep mode yet, so they forget it. And then months from now, they reach back out to us, like, "Hey,
all year they're asking for them between both borrowers and investor side."
Yeah, no doubt.
So yeah, while that's going on, so that's all loan portfolio stuff, and at the same time, we have our staff accountant that handles all of the operating accounts, and we have a number of entities. We're going to give a quick breakdown of what goes on over on that side. And she's also doing 1099s, and that's mainly for like inspectors and other third-party vendors and stuff that get paid by the operating accounts. So backing up a little bit, the people who are involved with this operation at our size are, so you have our controller that manages the loan portfolio. That company's called HMB Servicing. It operates TMO and one bank account. Everything that happens inside of the loan portfolio is her world. We have another staff accountant, like I just mentioned, who does all of the operating accounts, payroll, 401k, all that stuff. Then you have the accounting firm who does our tax prep for all of our entities and personal. And then you have me and Jason basically supervising the show. Like, we don't have too many actual keystrokes to do. It's more checking on things, making sure things are done in a timely fashion, and making sure things are accurate. Right? Over the years, we've gotten a lot better at reading corporate tax returns, personal tax returns, K-1s, all that stuff. We've been improving year to year. Like early on, it was hard to look at a corporate tax return and have any idea of what was going on inside of it. And now we do have a pretty good idea, So here towards the beginning of tax season, here's where we are now. It's right at the end of January. So all of the 1099s and 1098s are out the door. And now we're moving into finalizing all of the books from 2022 for each of the business entities. And we have a number of them inside our lending operation. We're 4 business entities based on different geographic markets, plus the servicing portfolio. And then we have some side ventures too, right? So where we have some other like web type businesses, real estate investments, things like that. So we have a handful of entities that we have to manage. I'm always careful of adding new entities to the operation. I know that a lot of real estate people, especially, are real entity happy. And they're like, another LLC, another LLC. I mean, that stuff comes with costs and management. So we're careful about only adding stuff like that when we really need to add it to the operation, because the stuff adds up. It really does. So that's where we're going to be moving into now with our staff accountant and me supervising a bit. And then as companies get ready, I'll be relaying the information. I mean, it's all online login, so I don't have to send actual accounting docs, but basically just keeping our accounting firm posted on when each company is ready. And we'll start rolling through those, getting the K1s out to the right partners, getting those submitted to the IRS in the States, and keep it moving. And then if you've heard us talk before about different kinds of investing that we do in addition to regular lending, obviously lending's, 90, 95% of what we focus on, but we have some equity investments too, both personally and through the companies. And equity investments come with a K1 from a third party, from another company, real estate operator, a couple of them that we have invested with over the years. So the entities and stuff that are going to be getting those K1s, we got to put those on the back end, right? Because we don't know exactly when those are going to come. They should come by April 15th, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily enough time to pass that all through the business entities and get those filed. So long story short, as our operation has grown, we're typically going to be on extension, both companies and personal. Probably about half the companies get done before tax time, and then half or maybe a couple of them after tax time. And once all that is done, signed off, and all the companies are submitted, then we can prep our personals, right? And those two have gotten, pretty involved over the years with the different entities we've owned and investment accounts aside and stuff like that. So, I mean, I look at my personal return these days, it's like 100 pages. So that too is required, like improving and increasing our knowledge in that regard.
Yeah, and the problem with being on extension in general is you feel like you're just always in tax prep.
Yeah,
because it's never ending, right?
Tax season's almost all year.
Yeah, because you have until the third quarter of the year, and the next thing you know, it's like, hey, yeah, we got to get moving again. So, we've always been good and diligent about filing stuff on time, but as we've grown and we've invested in other business ventures and things like that, we're waiting on K1s from other operations. And sometimes some of our entities are the owners of these other ventures, or sometimes it's our own personal names that are. So it kind of sucks that that's the case. I will say, though, that depending on how your business is set up with your capital investors, not to say that you're K1ing your capital investors, but depending on who your partners are and who your business who your business dealings are with, if they're passive investors, or if they're investors that aren't operating businesses full time, like, make sure you get the required stuff out to them as soon as possible, because a typical employee, that's like, their head will explode if they don't file their tax returns on time. They don't right. They literally will go crazy if their CPA is gonna be like, what are you doing? We don't do extensions. You only have W-2 income in the past. Right. And now you're investing in an operation that does that. So we don't really have that. That doesn't really affect us, because we don't really have K1s that go out to any of our capital sources. But that's not to say that you're not listening. If you're not listening, that you don't have some sort of capital stack with joint venture partners and things like that. So just think through that a little bit, because that's always been something that I know people get, passive investors get weird about.
They're just not used to it. They're like,
yeah. So again, make sure your 1099s, 1098s, everything like that are out. That's important, and uploaded to the IRS. If it's the first time doing it, it's kind of a pain in the neck doing it, and you probably have to do something manual, and you can do it manual, right? You can buy the forms, and you can do it yourself. As you have a bigger portfolio. This year we used a software called Track 1099, which was a pretty interesting one. It worked clean. TMO has a solution. It's not the best solution, at least that we found, and it ended up being a little bit more expensive than we wanted to pay to do so. But we like this. We like Track 1099. We've tried a lot of different things over the years, and it depends on your situation. But in essence, we export the data from TMO, our servicing software, then we import it into Track 1099. We actually had a developer that we do some stuff with that was able to clean up the data for us, so it presented cleaner, right? Like, you know, when you export data in general, let's say you have a comma in the wrong place, or you have multiple email addresses, or you have kind of like placeholders inside your operation as reminders for things, like little things that you wouldn't even think about. But that happens all the time, multiple properties, things like that. So, you know, we have someone that typically cleans up the data. But long story short, there's a lot of different options to do it. And, you know, I feel like early on, if you're year 1 or year 2, it's something that you might overlook and be like, oh shit, I forgot I got to do this. But
yeah, you really have to though.
Yeah. Do it manually if you need to.
Yeah, no, definitely get 1099s done. The IRS doesn't, if that comes to their attention, they don't mess around with that. You get fines per 1099 that didn't go out that should have. Like, don't mess around with any of that. And, you know, like I was thinking, like, taxes in general, like I was saying before, that we've gotten more and more competent over the years. And I know that so frequently our CPA, who we're close with, he and his partner, like, they're very good accountants and good business people in general. And you don't typically find CPAs that can really truly talk business. And ours can, which is great. It's been a really good relationship for the past 6-7 years. And they often tell us that we know more about taxes than 99% of their clients. And they do a lot of real estate people. They have lending companies. They have big real estate investors. And I just don't totally get that in terms of operating a company and truly like not having any clue about what's going on with your taxation and your numbers and everything else. Like, there's not really any aspect of our business that we would operate blind. And sure. Tax is a big part of that, you know? Like, tax is a big part of the finances of a company and your personal operation. Like, learning more about that, knowing what's going on, trying to be as tax efficient as possible through, you know, the right types of investments and such has been a big part of our game plan. Like, that's been a more recent improvement to our overall financial plan as business operators, right? And I think that's important, to be honest. Like, granted, do I know every single line on this like 200-page corporate tax return? No, I don't. I'm not saying that. I don't need to know it on a CPA level. I don't need to know the keystrokes even, but I do need to know what I'm looking at and what it all means, right? You need to know like the basics to, you know, bottom line type stuff. Yeah, something I was thinking about as we have been going through this, you know, just now starting tax season, 1099s are out. I have instructions to our in-house accountants on what to do to start getting the companies ready, and just kind of managing the whole show was very front of mind for him today.
If you're enjoying, you know, this format that we've been doing, if you listen to this on Apple iTunes or Spotify or any other platform for podcasts, or if you like the video version, you can go to Hard Money Mastermind, which is on YouTube, and you can check that out. If you're enjoying this format, you know, give us a quick review, give us a quick like. You know, if you want us to continue to do stuff like this, let us know, and obviously we're happy to do so. If there's any guests that you feel would benefit the group, happy to as well. And also, if you want to communicate with us directly, you can go to hardmoneymastermind.com and check out a free account. You know, we're typically always in there kind of going back and forth. I'll give you an example. Today, someone inside the mastermind group was structuring a deal on cross collateral in his local market. He's in the process of doing a loan for a borrower who's buying a property, and instead of bringing cash to the table, they have 2 additional free and clear rental properties. So right before I hopped on this podcast, I spent a few minutes reading his question and answering to what I thought was the best structure for him. So if you ever want to hop into the Hard Money Mastermind, feel free to at hardmoneymastermind.com.
Thanks, guys, for checking out the show, and we will see you next time on the Private Lenders Podcast.
All right, guys. Check you out next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast. Please note that the opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not intended for legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, accounting, and financial professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would spread the word. make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 free community for new and experienced private and hard money lenders.